Hey, and we're live. Welcome to the Kill or Be Killed podcast. Of course, I'm Damien here with your boy George. And today we've got a good buddy of mine, Ryan Quirk from Dads for Defense. He created the Travel Awareness Program. And Ryan has got an extensive history in law enforcement, military, and security. Hey, man, thanks for jumping on, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. You got my audio okay?
Yeah, you sound great. You sound great.
Yeah, thank you. How do I look? Good? All
right. You're beautiful as always.
No, I really appreciate you having me on, man. This is, I think this is important. I think that once people start tuning in, they'll be able to kind of pick up some tidbits and learn in an environment that isn't stressful or really structured. And that's really how I learn. So it's probably a good avenue for us.
So, like, how did you start? Like, let's think back to, the beginning. Your first, you got out of college. Were you ROTC? What was your path?
No, I was just a kid who couldn't stop getting in trouble. So I remember the culminating event, and this is a story not many people know. So this is great that it's live. Let's just throw it in the kitchen sink at it. So I remember it was my junior year, and I was 17. It just turned 17, and everybody goes to Jersey Shore. And we're on our way back because we had school on Monday. And my buddy looked at me and goes, I don't want to go back. I said, well, me neither. And I called my mom and I said, yeah, I'm not going to school on Monday. And I want to drop out of school. She's like,
wow.
What? What is your plan? I'm like, well, I'm going to join the Marines. At no point did I even consider joining the military. I just said that.
So have you ever, like, obviously you played soldier as a kid, but it wasn't like you didn't have the posters on your wall?
My dad was career Army, so he did 26 years. And, I can remember, way back when wearing his gear and, wearing his Army shirts. And, so I was always playing Army or soldier or whatever you want to call it. So I was always into it, but I had never shot a gun or anything prior to going to boot camp. And I just told my mom, I'm gonna drop out and join the military. And at that point, I'd created so much of a headache at that point. She's like, okay, fine. And so then I dropped out and I got my GED. And
no way.
Yeah, I left.
So how did you how did you get okay, you're your buddy, and did your buddy join the Marines too?
No, we're still friends to this day.
Okay.
He's married now.
Did he drop out?
No, he finished. I remember he called me when everybody else graduated.
What the hell, man?
I was on the phone with them. I remember being in the middle of the Mojave Desert on the phone with my class when they're all partying post-graduation. And
so what month was this when you dropped out?
God, it was right after prom. So when does prom?
And you said this is your seventh. So it's your junior year?
My junior year. I didn't even go to my senior year.
So you said you didn't so senior year,
never went.
Nothing.
So I left, I got my GED. Right after that, the process was different. Basically, you just went to a GED testing center. And if you got online early enough to get it, you went in and took the test. And if you passed,
you just had to pass the test. You didn't have to take classes or get credits or anything.
No, that's the same shit that I did in 5 hours.
It was just, and I remember I was just not into the process. So, and I actually saw one of my buddies there. So it was a very weird experience now that I'm calling it. And so I left for boot camp. I didn't have a cell phone or a driver's license. I wound up getting my driver's license when I was in California in the Marines. But when I went to boot camp, I was only 17. I had to have my parents sign off.
So where'd you go to? Where's boot?
So I was at Parris Island. So I was East Coast. Anything like pretty much west of the Mississippi goes to San Diego. And I went to Parris Island. That sucked. You learn a lot about yourself there. You learn how much you can actually take. And, just it's down to everything, down to the bugs biting you. Any Marine or will be able to attest to that. It's just a lot. But I got in there 17. I graduated. I was still 17 when I graduated. Yeah.
So, at what point in this process, I'm sure there were multiple points but you're going through this. At what time you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Why did I fucking do this? Like
every night,
right.
Every night.
It's like,
every
you get
night
off
I'm
the
like,
bus.
this sucks.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So again, okay, 17, you go through, and then, and then I guess your advanced training was in California.
No, so I got out. I went to North Carolina. It was Camp Lejeune, and we did our advanced training there. And initially, I went to communications school. So I actually learned how to like work on circuit boards and stuff like that.
Right.
So that actually plays into what I do now and some of the aptitude I have now at the things I'm doing in the private sector. So it actually helped. And then that was when GWAT, or the Global War on Terror, was really kind of kicking off. And units were being kind of chopped up and sent into task forces and other things that was either not unit specific. So typically the military is created in such a way that a unit has, certain MOSs or jobs that are attached to it, and they have a mission, right? The primary mission is always combat, and then everything else supports it for the most part. And during this time, units were being retasked and repurposed for all kinds of things. I mean, you haven't met him yet. My buddy Ray he was a military police officer with an air wing and wound up doing IED response team missions. Just doing craziness during Phantom Fury. And so it was during a time, like I'd say right after the invasion up until like 2007, you had these very unique missions being stood up, like the transition teams for the military and the law enforcement units over there. You had a lot of these advisor groups kind of being stood up. And the unit that I went to, they needed a machine gun instructor. I had gone to the school by that point. And, then I went out there, I was out there for a while, and then I came back and was actually loaned out to them. And that's who I deployed with in 2006. And we wound up doing our mission changed, I think, the day after we landed in country. We had trained for one mission for months. And then when we ended, they said, oh, no, by the way, you guys are going to the Syrian border. There's barely any electricity. There might be showers. We're not sure. Pack a lot of batteries, and you're going to be doing SASO, or support and stability operations. And that just turned into, we did everything: counterinsurgency, support and stability. We did our own security. So, we didn't have off days. We had shifts. So it was, they were 6-hour shifts, and they just rotated. So it was 6 hours standing posts, 6 hours working at the border, like checking vehicles, working with the police and training them. And then it was 6 hours doing patrols and other quick reaction force type deals. So if anybody in the area got tuned up, we can go out and help them. And then you got 6 hours of downtime. So, that was, if you can get a shower. I don't think we showered for like the first 2 months, though. There was no showers. So we wound up, we were averaging like 4 hours a night sleep, maybe, for months. And after a while, we were just so ragged that they reinforced us like halfway through the deployment.
So how long did you deploy that? How long did that last?
The Marines do relatively short deployments when compared to the Army. I think it was 7-ish months, something like that. And we were the furthest west unit in Iraq. We were actually right on the Syrian border prior to when all that kicked off. And it was a really unique experience. Learned a lot. And then I wound up getting sent over to the Jordanian border, doing some work over there. And it was a really interesting experience. I got back. I still wasn't even I wasn't even old enough to drink yet. I had already joined the Marines, been through boot camp, did my deployment, still couldn't even buy a beer. So that all happened. And then I took the next logical step, and I just took the civil service test and wound up going into law enforcement. And I took the first job that called. I went into corrections first. And I was in the jails. And then I got out of the jails after a couple of years. And then I spent the rest of my time with a full-time special ops unit. And we were doing a lot of support for state level, federal level, and other state agencies. whether it was, if we had dignitaries coming in. I mean, we had the president visit a few times, candidate Trump at the time, Prince Harry, all these VIPs that would come in. We would assist with, the state police and whoever else needed it. And then, we kind of wound up, again, just jack of all trades. You'd work with this group one day and this group another day. And every now and then they'd say, if a jail was off the hook, they'd make us go in and fix it.
Right.
So yeah. And then I had a great career, had a great group of guys. We had a very small team. We were all really, really close. I still keep in touch with all of them to this day. And got to go to some really cool schools. That's when I went to, I got to go to FBI sniper and SWAT school. So that was cool. Those guys were good. Probably tired now. But after that, then I wound up, a recruiter contacted me to go do some contract work, and couldn't turn down the money. So I said, all right. I kind of forgot about it because I had I had a few of these. And, I responded and said, oh yeah, definitely. Cause they needed snipers. So I guess they saw my resume on Indeed or whatever it was. And then I wound up, like months later hearing back, and they're like, all right, we need all this paperwork. So I just started kind of filtering in the paperwork. And next thing you know, I got my interim clearance, and I went away to do my training in Perry, Georgia. So I did it was 45 days down there. It was kind of like it was no days off, 45 days straight, 10-hour days. And then once you passed all those graded events, the snipers then had to go on to another course.
So the training down in Georgia, what specifically was that? Is that more advanced sniper training? Or?
No, so that was it's known as WIPS. It's Worldwide Protective Services, the State Department program, where they will basically recruit or hire former operators. It used to be a little more strict. Years ago, there was only X units that would be able to get selected for it. And over the years, it's kind of gotten, we'll say, a little bit more lax, but we're going to.
Well, I mean, it's just I'm sure that the pool that they're drawing from is
drying up
a little shallower. So yeah, I get that.
And the pay is not what it was. That's another thing that's very different, is the pay scales. From what I'm hearing, I still keep in contact with some guys. Pay scales are very different, but it's a very good course to attend, because it really lays the foundation for the executive protection or private security work that I've been doing now for a while. Because I can say this, if you're just, there's a lot of soft skills that you won't get in a typical military or law enforcement career that pertain to protective security.
Define soft skills, please.
So, I'm trying to think back to the curriculum. So a lot of it is, when you're doing protective security, there's so much more than just carrying a gun, right? Or carrying a gun and being hyper aware. There's, in my opinion, and this is
everybody always thinks of, security, bodyguards, firearms, Secret Service, what they see up front, what they see.
Right. So
I mean, that's right.
There's different types of security. I always break it into two kind of lanes. You got overt or high profile, and low profile or covert. And I always shy towards the low profile, because unless you have a client like a Taylor Swift, who people see the client, they're like, oh my God, then it's a little different, like a Bieber or somebody like that. Then it's a different type of security. But for most clients, that is too much, and it's too much of an infringement on their day-to-day lives, right? Because what you're actually giving, and what I think is missed a lot of times in the industry, is what you are offering that client is peace of mind. So you're offering them peace of mind. They're trusting you with the most important thing in their life, their family or their livelihood, or a mixture of the two. And you become a part of that family, especially if you're the close guy, if you're the close protection guy. You'll often have like drivers and estate security guys, but there'll be at least one, if not multiple, close protection guys. And there's always one, we call them the AIC, or the agent in charge, from the State Department or OGA side. you will, that'll be like the team leader basically. And that team leader really gets close with the client. And even on the government side, you do. Like the AIC gets very close with the client, whether it's the ambassador or whomever. You have to, because you need to be able, and we go, this is going to come back around to the soft skills. You need to be able to predict not only what's going on in your environment, but what your client's going to do. So if you don't really know your client and something spooks your client, you need to know what their disposition is. How do they react to stress? And you pick these things up using taking little bits of information, and you're kind of creating a profile in your head, because there are, just like any other human, some people deal with stress well. Some people don't deal with being hot well. Some people don't deal with, traffic jams well. So when you get to know the person, that allows you to kind of predict their reaction, because there have been times where I've had clients who have reacted poorly.
Like what? Like example? Like, obviously we're not naming names here.
So I've had clients where, like, I've been at an event and there started to be, you can kind of like see some friction. You get a proxemic push where you start to see people kind of move away from an area. That's usually indicative of a fight. So think about every fight you've ever seen. Once they start scrapping, all of a sudden people start making that circle, like the schoolyard circle, to watch it. So if you're seeing that push, then you're like, well, all right, something's happening there. But you need to be able to assess and dismiss or act real quick, because the client's relying on you. But then what happens is, just like everything else, they're still just regular people. Just because they're paying you to protect them doesn't mean they're any different. They're going to react the same way. So the client then wanted to go see the fight. So I don't know who the fight was. We're in an area that was known for gang activity. So it was kind of like it was like a street fair type deal. A fight happened, and the client goes towards the area, the exact opposite direction I wanted to go. And at that point, I'm sure I can't really, I didn't want to tip my hand that he was important enough to have security.
Of course.
I basically grabbed him by his belt and ripped him backwards, because the belt's a great place to grab somebody if you want to control them. They're not expecting it. So grabbed him by the belt and yanked him back. And that's where the tables kind of turned. And, you're in my world now. So either you fire me on the spot or you listen to what we're going to say type deal, because that's where the risk, I don't like to say I'm in security. I like to say I'm in risk mitigation, because that's what I'm doing, mitigating risk. And the skill sets that I bring and my team bring to the table are so varied that we're able to mitigate kind of full spectrum the risk, hence the camera detection and all that. You basically, at that point, it becomes a risk mitigation operation, and I need to now get him off the X or get him somewhere safer, so then I can actually either assess. And I was by myself, so I didn't have a team to fall back on.
Rough.
What was going on.
So
I had to kind of wear all the different hats, and I was driving at the same time. So
I mean,
now the car's locked in.
Right. If the shit hits the fan, it's a problem.
Right. So it's a lot, and that's the soft skills. To go back to that is, your gun should be your last option. If you have to pull your gun, you've already messed up, because you missed so many indicators. Now, granted, there are going to be instances where you don't have anything but that reaction. But in protective security, if you have to draw your weapon or even show your weapon, you've missed a few steps, or you're in a completely crazy situation that couldn't be avoided anyway. But I would argue that there are always steps first, aside from those one-offs or those very slim particulars. Even in high threat areas. I mean, we've done work in some really dicey areas internationally too, like Mexico City and places like that, where the threat level is just so much higher. Even those areas, the same thing applies. The human behavior, and my friends over at Arcadia Cognerati, they're the best at it, and that's who really helped me fine-tune my skills there. It's the same from Boston to Budapest. People are the same. There's cultural variances, but for the most part, people are people no matter where you go. So aside from some subtle things that you'll pick up on real quick, you need to be able to, verbal judo, talk your way out of things, or Smiling's a great idea. A lot of people that get into protective security, it's like they forget or they are unable to smile. They think they have to have the stone cold face. Dude, just smile. It'll get you further, because maybe you can't park your car there, but it's really easy for you to get your client to the door because it's a direct shot, or you got to park 3 blocks away. Why don't you try being nice? Or maybe even when you go do your advance, why don't you bring some coffee or bagels in to the security guys or and say, hey man, I'll be here tomorrow with this client. Or if you got to use an alias, I'll be here tomorrow for XYZ event. Here, I brought you this. I figured you use some coffee.
Yeah, like the misconception with that. I said, look, the easiest way I ever brought somebody out of a bar, which is what I always did when I had to, was just be a smile. Like, excuse me, sir, can I talk to you for a second over here? And you just walk them outside and you're like, hey, thank you for coming. We got to end it now. And I go, and then they're outside and they're like, what do I do? And you're like, well, no problem, sir. Have a good night. I'll take care of when you come in next time. And you're done.
Right.
And that's it. Yeah, you think you got to be this, this hard ass, and it's like that only causes more shit.
Fuel to the fire, man.
Then you're trying to. It's just like,
it's really, and that's where I'm so fortunate in that I believe that I had the opportunity to be, and my cadre when I went into contracting, I would argue, is one of, if not the best collective cadres for protective security operations that I think has ever been assembled. It's a relatively new program. So I think, because I know all of them personally now very, very closely, and I know their specialties and what they really excel at, they were arguably one of, if not the best cadre of instructors. And they now, we still work together. We still do, if I have work that comes up through Sparrow, my other company, they're the first phone call. They're absolutely the first phone call that I make, and then it's theirs to turn down. So I've had the privilege and good fortune of being trained by those individuals in this skill set, and then they really helped the company early on, because when I first started the company, I decided to leave the contract. I was in Kabul. And I decided. When you say
the company, that's so people know it's Sparrow Security.
Sparrow Risk Group.
Yep. So Risk Group, yes, and Sparrow that's Risk Group. What. Right. Explain.
Yes, it's the security. So that's what got me into the private sector in a big way. So now it's kind of grown into security and intelligence. So we're able to we have a very good network there, but on the security specific side of the house, having that group of now friends and family in some instances, having them there really helped guide where it should go, because in the industry, I think there's a big problem with everybody's out for themselves, where if they go on it, let's say they work for company X and they go on a detail, they'll try and wiggle their way in to be a direct hire for that client, and then they'll push the company. So they'll undercut the company. Right. Let's say the company's charging whatever, $2,000 a day. They'll go in and say, I can do it for $1,000. Just pay me directly.
Right.
Now it's a complete conflict of interest, and it's a non-compete violation, but non-compete agreements aren't worth the paper they're printed on.
You got to hire a lawyer and you got to sue somebody, and guess what? You're upside down unless it's and if it's a multi-million-dollar contract, one person's not going to be able to do it. You need a team and you need that support.
Right. And then the other thing is, a lot of times in the industry, I've seen more and more as time progresses, companies without inherent capabilities or without capabilities themselves will promise the world, and then all of a sudden they'll start shopping out for whatever they need. Now, there's a difference between doing that, and then there's also a difference between, I work with other companies all the time. If we have a big contract and there's a piece that is somebody's like direct lane, yeah, I could do it. But if it's their lane, why not just bring them in and say, hey, here's what we got going on. You handle this piece, I'll handle this piece. And that's why it's called Sparrow Risk Group. So we have a Rolodex that's just filled with just the best of the best at what they do. And that's the way you get things done. Give value add to the client without poaching each other's work. There's no poaching. We're not trying to steal anything. We're trying to, accomplish the mission. And
Now, I want to, because I know, talk about the red team stuff a little bit, if you
so yeah,
would,
that
and
kind
that'll
of
kind of bring us into, how you got. I really explain like what red team is, and how you kind of got developed that skill set, because I
sure.
think that will apply directly to where we're going with all this.
So the red team, I kind of realized that there was a gap in the industry, right? There was a gap with the soft skills, but B, other very important ancillary specialties, like for instance, physical security exploitation, which is a fancy way to say red teaming, and technical surveillance countermeasures, or TSCM, finding hidden cameras and bugs. So I realized that these skills were one, very difficult to learn, and two, that they were in high demand in the industry, so they can charge a premium, because it's a very specialized skill. So I said,
right. So give an example of a job, if you don't mind.
yeah.
And
So I did okay. So there was a large company in Tennessee. It opened a new location, and they had paid all this money for this security system, and they were paying a guard force. And I mean, you're talking, they were dropping easily, high seven figures. They dropped a lot of coin on this, and they called me in to conduct a red team, or a vulnerability assessment is, I think, the actual term we use, but it's a red team. So
red team sounds so much cooler.
Yeah, red team just sounds cooler. That's something
team.
I think it was Marshenko coined back in the day. But basically, red team is, hey, we're going to pay you to act like a bad guy and break into my stuff. See if you can break in, see what you can get, and then let me know how you did it, so I can not have actual bad guys do it. So typically what happens is you'll meet with one or two key stakeholders in the company. You got to keep it as quiet as possible, because if everybody talks about it, then you're not going to get a real metric of what you're dealing with, because everybody's going to be all of a sudden everybody's doing their jobs, right? Complacency kicks in, and you got the guy with the shirt untucked and the mustard stain on his shirt. You got the guy at the gate who's not actually verifying that you have the ID. So maybe he's just looking. He's not looking at the sheet. And I'll watch him. We'll do surveillance for days, where we'll sit up in the trees and we'll watch from, pretty far away, and we'll see what his patterns are. When does he go on lunch? How often does he use his phone? Does he actually look at the sheet to reconcile the sheet with the ID? And then what we do is we get closer and we wait for somebody to, this is one thing that people do that's just a terrible idea, is they'll wear their work credentials either on them walking in the parking lot or to get lunch, or they'll hang them from their car when they go home. So one way or another, we will obtain either a physical ID or a photo of an ID, which is just as good. And then we'll play our game. We have an ID machine. We'll make an ID that looks just like yours, but it's got my face on it, or a contractor ID. So we do surveillance just to gather the intel. And then we will create our story, our way in. How are we getting in? So, hard hat and a ladder will do wonders for you. Go up and you have, or landscaping. Nobody really questions the landscapers. So, you show up with a landscaper company shirt and you got a truck with a magnet you bought on the side. And all of this we're actually purposely buying for the job. Like we'll create a website just for an extra layer of validation. So if they do question us, be like, hey man, I don't, my supervisor's not answering. I'll tell my buddy, if I call you from this number, you're my supervisor at this company. And then, there'll be a website that we made a month prior. Like, look, that's our website. That's me right on the picture. And it's all, I did it in the car, but it's enough for the person who's not paying attention on that guard force for me to get past them. And then we're exploiting things like, one person can only really watch 4 surveillance cameras at a time, but yet routinely you'll find guards watching 16, 24.
With a wall of monitors, right?
I mean, now with AI, it's creating, and it's getting very good. So that's kind of the old days, but a lot of places security is antiquated. So in this specific instance, I wound up getting into the building just by waiting for it to rain. I looked at the weather and I'm like, I'm just going to try this. And what do people do when it rains? they hold the door open for you. So I waited until there was like a large rush of people in and out. And I just kind of looked like I had papers on my head, like I was covering my head from the rain. And I just came running up dressed in business casual stuff. And they held the door open for me. So I just got through the first layer because there was a key card reader. So I just got through the outer layer of your security. Well, I got through, that wasn't even the outer layer. The outer layer was your gate guy who just let me through. And then the inner layer, the access control, I got through your access control. But, you know, I had means to hack my way into that if I needed to, but I didn't even need to. A lot of times the human being is the weakest point. Can I get through access control systems? Sure I can, but it's time consuming and it gives the opportunity for me to get caught. So, you know, I got in and then it's just you just find your next guy. Hey, that security guy looks really tired. Like he hasn't slept in 3 days. And you go up to him and you give him some story. And if you talk long enough, he's just going to tell you to get the hell out of there and do whatever you got to do. Because he doesn't want to hear it. You know, so if you walk up, you start talking to him, he's like, whatever, dude, just here, go. And now I have my little bag of goodies that I can get into offices, filing cabinets, safes. I can take whatever information I want. And wound up getting some really sensitive information there. And when I submitted my report, I also submitted social security numbers, pictures of families, and then I had done like a very cursory open source deep dive on them. And I'm like, hey, here's your wife's name. Here's where your kids go to school. And this was all grabbed from, you know, what I grabbed out of the office and the trash bin.
So now these skills, you know, aren't normally gleaned in, you know, normal military law enforcement. You know, so, you know, when we talk about this stuff, I mean, for the average person that's in security and law enforcement, you know, do any of them have this type of training?
It's getting more actually. So lock picking has become very popular as of late, and by an extension, covert entry for the people that. So you have lock picking is just one piece of covert entry. It's a very important piece. You can bypass the lock, and I think it's a skill every dad should know because I've used my lock picking skills way more for my own stupidity and other people's stupidity than for work. Let's just be honest. I've locked myself out of my car, gotten into my car. This door right here, I locked myself out of it, and I'm like, all right, I got to get back in it. So the lock picking is very, very popular, and there are very, very good lock pickers out there teaching this stuff. And then the actual business of covert entry, there's a company called Covert Instruments, great guys down there. They're just killing the game because they're the best at creating purpose-built equipment for covert entry specialists. And it's really getting popular, but the question then is, where is the application? I do know police departments are able to use covert entry methods to on affidavits to serve warrants. But a lot of times, if like, let's say I get called in as a consultant to make entry on whatever, a residence or a container. As soon as I start that pick, if I can't get into that lock, that warrant's bunk. You can't then just shift to something else. A lot of times, I mean, I'm not speaking, I don't know everybody's protocols, but I know in California, at least as of a few years ago, if you started that entry and you couldn't get in for some reason, let's say they had security pins and you're not that good at picking locks, you're not going to get past that probably. And then it's going to become an issue, and that warrant's got to go away. SWAT team's got to go home. Everybody's going to be real pissed. But then there is the question of remote surveillance. And the problem with that is everyone has cameras these days, not even a hidden camera. Well, sometimes they're hidden, but even the criminals are using Ring cameras, Arlo cameras, Wise cameras, whatever they can get. They're going to get professional wired cameras. But it's very difficult to take care of that layer of security / surveillance without the help of more specialized practitioners. It's a little complicated.
Right. So
like jammers, you can't use jammers, right? That's an FCC thing. You will get a lot of trouble if you use a jammer without the authority to do so.
I would say jammer, like jam their signal so they can't have access to the Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so
or,
very popular in. We're seeing a ton of it now in like New York, California, which was what prompted me to make some of these courses, because you have these South American, very, very well-educated, well-equipped, and organized crime rings and organized crime syndicates coming up from South and Central America. And if you look at when the cartels were really going at it last year, if you would look at the cartels, they would have, a lot of them would have a bunch of antennas sticking out of their pouches, like on like a grenade pouch or something. Those were all jammers. They were just rolling around with jammers, and they were all just popping them on. So your cell phone won't work. Your Bluetooth won't work. Your Wi-Fi won't work. Nothing will work. Oh, Jesus. Nothing will work. And so if they put those jammers on, it shuts everything down in like a half a block radius. So
wow.
Yeah, like it depends on how many, and if there's a lot of them, working in succession, if you have a large group and they're all utilizing jammers, you're not going to get anything for blocks. And that's what they were doing.
Right.
They would position themselves so nothing would work. The radios weren't working. Nothing was working. So now they're coming up and they're attacking the houses, and they're bypassing people's security systems.
And by the way, everybody, you know, first responder radios don't always work anyway. It's like, you know, we get like line of sight crap. You can't hear anything. And it's, yeah. So, you know, you want it state of the art, but I don't know. A lot of times we still can't get that right. So you mentioned, so, you know, you have the skill set, and, you know, first I want to, you know, I want to start talking about Dads for Defense, right? You know, you approached me to be a part of it, which I'm honored. But, you know, you've got the skill set, you've got this group of individuals and, you know, companies and experts that you've put together. So Dads for Defense, that's how, you know, that program launched. You know, what made you do this?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. It took me a lot of practice to really fine tune what the answer really was, because there's so much going on. As you know, we're on the phone all the time, baking this thing out. Really, what it was is it ties in nicely to what I mentioned before. Is these people who I've met through my career, which is unique in itself, and then it's just gotten weirder as the time has gone on. But I've had the honor of meeting and working with these great individuals and these great groups. And so my network is very strong, no matter what it is. Anything security, intelligence, anything I need, I can make a few phone calls and make something happen, or find out, you know, I can solve the problems that need to be solved for my clients. I can get, you know, find out, read through the propaganda, right? There's, just like anything else, there's a lot of information out there, and a lot of it is bullshit, right? A lot of it is.
And the term I hate to use is like misinformation, because it's you know, it's, but it's like, yeah, dude, nobody, especially what we just went through with COVID, you know, I think a lot of the machine has been, you know, revealed, where people are like, all right, I don't believe this shit anymore. And it's all clickbait on both sides. You know, I'm like, you know, me and the news are just not friends, you know, anything that takes money for something that is supposed to be the truth. It's,
take it with a grain of salt. I tell everybody, and that's why the intelligence reports on D4D are so important. So I'll segue into that. So basically what Dads for Defense is it's a community, right? It's a community for like-minded men who believe that we have a duty to our families and to our community to be the best version of ourselves, the most formidable version of ourselves, and be an example for your children. You're a father. You can tell your kids, you know, treat women with respect all you want, but they're going to do what they see. How you treat your wife is what they're going to emulate, right? So how you dedicate yourself to staying in shape, to training your mind, training your body, knowing how to defend yourself. I'm not saying you have to use it, but if you're not formidable and you're not capable of violence, then you're just in the way. Get out of the way and let the real men come do stuff, because when things go bad, you're going to be a liability. Just sit down, let us handle it, and we'll come get you when it's over. Because if you don't have any skill sets, if you can't fend for yourself, if you can't get your family out of a burning building because you haven't, trained or even thought about training for years in any capacity, well, shame on you. And we're going to give you the opportunity to do so in a stress-free environment and actually have access to these extraordinary people that I have really leaned on throughout the years. And then I hope it grows from there, where we create a network where, let's say, I'm going to go to Wisconsin for a conference. I can hop on the Dads for Defense Network and say, hey, who here is from Wisconsin? Oh, I am. Hey, you want to meet up for a beer? Absolutely. So it's a community based on shared values, which are, listen, be the best version of yourself. Don't just tell your family or your children what you want them to do. Show them how to be that protector. Show them how to treat people with respect. You should treat the CEO and the janitor the same way. They're not different. Right. And if you're not doing that, then you haven't done something right as a father to guide them that way. If they don't have a father, if there's a child without a father in their life and they're maybe looking for that direction, maybe we step in and we help the community. If you don't put money and effort into your community, it's going to deteriorate, and then you can't say anything when it does. You should be shopping locally when you can. Right. If somebody opens up a new bakery, instead of going down to the whatever big supermarkets down there, go shop local, man. Go down to your local bakery, support that person, because guess what? They're from your community. And they put their money out there, and they're trying to start, to beautify the area. And that's really where I think Dads for Defense will shine. Is we're going to create this network of like-minded men. And at the same time, hey, let's teach you some things. You want to learn how to detect hidden cameras and protect your family's privacy? Here, it's a 15, 20-minute video, and you're going to be proficient enough at it to actually protect your privacy. I just took something very complicated, broke it down really simple, and we're not going to get in the weeds with it, but you will understand how to do it. And the same goes for firearms training, which we're also doing. The same goes for home defense. I'm doing a whole home defense series. So all of my skills that I've acquired as a covert entry specialist and as a physical security exploitation guy, I'm going to reverse engineer it and give you, the dad from, Boston, the skills necessary to make your own informed decisions. And then we have our intelligence reports, which make sense of the headlines. So you can take that information, turn it into knowledge, and then make those informed decisions for you and your family.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people also need to realize is like, okay, look, if you want to become a Liam Neeson type character, I'm not saying it's not impossible, but let's just say if you wanted to be, we got guys from that are on Team 6, there's a lot of dudes that are on here are fucking dudes. But you don't got to be that. Like I always like, the analogy we use is always like, the two friends, the old joke, the two friends that are walking in the woods and they come across a bear, and the one friend starts, putting on his running shoes, and he's like, hey, you'll never outrun that bear. He's like, dude, I just got to outrun you.
Yep.
I'm like, not everyone is going to prepare. In fact, hardly anybody is going to prepare.
Yep.
Right. So you just got to be the fucking faster, more aware gazelle to fucking, avoid the lion. And the lion's going to look at you and be like, I'll just go to the next one, or I'll go to the next house, or this is taking too long, or I got identified, or, that guy looks like he may put up a struggle. You look at, you interview like serial killers. They're like, why'd you pick that person? Well, they look like they weren't going to fucking put up a fight. Right. They would be compliant. I'd be able to get them to where I wanted to get them. So there's like basic techniques and tactics that don't, look, we want you to be in shape, right? We want you to be, in your shape, and you present a certain way. again, there's confidence. There's look, this is like, we're going to tell you the truth too.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to sit there and like wave a magic wand, right. And,
Mm-hmm.
and be like, okay, yeah, I watched the video. No, you got to kind of, you should practice some of this shit. It doesn't take a lot to do it. So,
Right.
Yeah.
like we talked about, like, and you touched on, so we got the travel awareness course, and, there was just a post on CNN today about, Airbnbs and the hidden cameras, and where, we always have like the headline, hey, not only, look, if I owned a property and was renting it out, right? I mean, at the bare minimum, I want to make sure that, the people who are renting my Airbnb aren't filming a porno in there, or having like a, or having like a fucking full 5-alarm party.
Yep.
Right. That's like trashing my shit. So even on its, on the surface, right, in its most innocent way, they're gonna, people are gonna put cameras fucking everywhere.
Right.
You think like it's not a public place where, you've got, you can't put cameras in the bathroom. What do they care? This is like, it's a regular person. And, you could put surveillance shit anywhere. As,
anywhere.
And so you're going into these places and know that you're being recorded. Fact.
Yes. And actually, I took a glance at the article, and there's a stat here that I specifically wrote down because it's so insane, and I didn't know this. So obviously I know that it's way more prevalent than people think, but, because I work in the security industry, everybody thinks I'm just crying wolf. So I'm like, all right, fine. When I'm right, you could just say I was right. That's usually how I do things. But as per the article, the CNN article, so this is a direct quote, a court disposition last year on since December 1st, 2013, there have been over 35,000 customer support tickets for surveillance. That's that's in a court disposition that's in the article. So we're not talking about anything that isn't open source and on the news. CNBC's done a bunch of articles. I would argue that every major news network has done an article on hidden cameras in public spaces. And there are major companies who are, and good on them, I'm not going to name them, but there are major companies who are paying very good money to have their common areas swept routinely. And that's great for them because it's not cheap, and companies don't like spending money if they don't have to. But they're going the extra mile, and there was to my knowledge, no incident that would have prompted it. But they just want to not have the problem, right? Because these cameras are so absolutely, they're purpose built. This is a hidden camera.
Wow. How much does that cost?
I got this it was on Amazon. I got it, and it's a nanny cam. That's how it's marketed. It's a nanny cam.
Right.
$30. And it even has internal. So interestingly enough, this has an internal storage. So it doesn't even, this one doesn't transmit actively. So this would require more of a physical and visual search than using some of the equipment that I'm going to recommend. But even, you have this. There's a camera in here. This one has a camera. This one doesn't. So this has a camera. You'd never know it works. You can plug everything into it. It works fine. But they're purpose-built devices. So gone are the days where you would notice that something had been tampered with, because they're being made specifically for this purpose. Now, in the course that we go over, in the hidden camera awareness and detection course, or the travel aware course, we basically go into how do we find these courses, or how do we find these devices rather? Because this doesn't look like anything weird, right? It's a regular charging port you'd find anywhere. Right. You'd find it in an Airbnb or a hotel even. So how do we detect these devices without driving ourselves nuts? Well, you can get a device like this, this is getting out of the range of affordable for the just casual practitioner. This is a very good device. This has some demodulation. This gets in the weeds on what it is, but this device will probably run you $800, $900. But then you have a device like this, which might run you $120. But the problem is, it says what it is. So now coming from the low profile security world and me having to be able to sweep a client's room on the go, if I fly to, say, I don't know, Dubai with this, good chance I'm not making it out of the airport. They're going to want to talk to me. So this device is going to work CONUS or in the continental United States. But if you're going to go, it will draw attention because it says what it is. But then you have a device like this, which has literally 0 words. And this is $30 on Amazon. And this device does the exact same thing, technically, as this really high-powered device. But it's completely innocuous. You can throw this in your bag, and you wouldn't be the wiser. So a lot of people don't think it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on, give it a second to kind of get the area. Now I'm next to my TV, but it should be okay. I'm going to move my phone. It's going to pick that up. So remember, there's a camera in this one. All right. Let's see. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So now if I remove it, nothing.
Right.
So that was that device. So that's how easy it is. This device, even though it's only $30, it's picking up my cell phone. Even though it's only $30, this device does work. It has a light on it, so you can do visual inspections. I don't recommend the lens detector because you have to be at the exact angle and lenses are curved. So if you use the detector, you might miss it and give you a false negative. But these other devices, it does the same thing as this $120 device and this, $800-900 device, but it doesn't paint you as what you are if you're on a security detail. And it is limited, but it's good enough, and it does the job, and it does the purpose for the everyday person, or even for the
right, because
something extra.
To your point, you're going up against shit that was bought on Amazon. It's not like, look, if you've got alphabet guys surveilling you,
you're not.
You've got a lifestyle.
Yeah.
You got a lifestyle.
Nonlinear junction. You're going to need all kinds of weird stuff to find that stuff. So,
right. And if that's your life, if that's your life, it's not, you
got a bigger problem if you got those people looking at you.
Right.
But even it's easy for the average guy. That's really what I did.
Right. Again, we're going against people who are, unauthorized invasion or authorized, but, invasion of privacy. And you don't know, again, on the very, most innocent level, there's an invasion of privacy and they want to protect their property. But again, that's your best scenario.
Right.
Your worst scenario is like this stuff is being recorded and being transmitted and being sold. And, it's a whole, look, we've all worked in, with, and seen real, pieces of shit for lack of a better term. So, I don't want anybody having any of my shit. So one of the guys asked a question about apps on the phone as detectors. Are there any decent ones? Are they too cheap? Are they good enough?
It depends on what you're trying to detect. Like for instance, here's a GPS tracker, small one. This one, the magnet, it has a little holder that you can put the magnet in it, and maybe pop it on a car or whatever. But it won't. Even any of these detectors, even the more high powered one, it's going to be hard to detect GPS devices because it's the way they transmit. So what these detectors are actually doing is they're detecting RF and basically anything with power, the AC outlets in your home, which is alternating current, they do generate RF. But typically think of RF for these purposes as anything that transmits information, right? So it'll pick up. That's why I had to move my phone. It'll pick up my phone. It'll pick up your smart TV. It'll pick up your router. It'll pick up this because this is communicating, right? I'm on a laptop, so this, or if you have a NIC card in your desktop, It's gonna be communicating. So anything with an antenna that's transmitting information, FM radio, AM radio, all these things will set this off. So that's why the course is so important, because the device itself is simple, but the methodologies and applications of the device, you need to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to think everything's a camera, because you're not going to know the methodology, and you have to take your hat off and put on the criminal's hat and say, okay, if criminal or somebody with nefarious intent put a device in here, where would they put it? Well, they don't care about you taking off your shoes, right? So think about who you are. If I have a client, corporate espionage is a very big thing that we help out with. And we will, let's say it's a CEO of a company. Well, we found cameras in the drop ceilings behind the CEO's computer, because they didn't care about what he said. They wanted to see what he was doing on his computer, and they would maybe find out about a merger or an acquisition or something. Right. So you got to think about who you are. Are you high profile? Do you own a business where the business is your name, right? Or are you just a regular suburban dad who's taking his family on vacation, or you're on a work conference? The risk is still there, as we saw. They got 35,000 of, and this is per the report, the news report, 35,000 customer support tickets. Just Google.
And that's what untrained people found.
Yep. Yes.
In their VBROs. So these are people that are like, knocking over a picture frame, or I don't know, a guy's got an old camcorder strapped to the roof.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm a fan,
Yeah. So like these are like regular people that are like, oh shit, that teddy bear's eye looks funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Which is part of it, and which is what you cover in the travel awareness course. So there's a visual inspection element of it. There's an electronics inspection element of it. But like I said, I mean, any of the phone apps work.
Yeah.
To do this.
So right off the bat, the number one app that I would get is Fing, Fing. Fing is a Wi-Fi. It's basically a Wi-Fi scanning app. Now you have to be able to connect to the network that you're using. So if you're going into, say, a short-term rental or a hotel, you're going to be able to connect to their Wi-Fi, right? So unless they have another Wi-Fi network, that will obviously make this kind of negate this effect. But I use Fing all the time, especially when I'm traveling. So if I go stay at an Airbnb, even if it's not for work, it's just me personally, I will log into Fing, connect to the Wi-Fi, and I will look. It'll give me a list of all the devices that are connected to that Wi-Fi, because it has to communicate. You got to think of, when you're looking for hidden cameras, first question you ask yourself is this a transitory space? Are other people able to come in here before and after me? The answer is going to be yes. Okay. So they can potentially have a device like this one, which has an SD card in it. This doesn't transmit. You have to go back and get this card. So they can, I can get an Airbnb under the name John Smith on Tuesday, and I know there's a females cheerleading competition the following week. I put this in there, and then I go back after the competition, and because I know that it's going to get booked out, and then I go back, I retrieve this, and I'm able to then pop in the SD card and see what I got. But with devices that they want to watch in real time, which are very, very common, like this device has an app, so I can actually go in and watch live. And so you notice that it's getting the power. It's parasitically powered. This is purpose built, but it's drawing the power from the unit. This will charge things. This will charge USBs. So it's completely innocuous looking, but this is going to have continuous power as long as it's plugged in. So the battery is never going to die. So it's an accessibility issue. And then think power. It has to be powered. So these purpose-built devices like this picture frame, this has to be charged. This won't last very long, especially if there's a lot of movement. So it's activated by the movement. So this is gonna die sooner rather than later. So they're not gonna put something like that in there. They're gonna put something that has continuous power like this. Right. And this you leave it in there. So I always say to work your way out, right? Go to the outside walls. Check everything that's plugged into an outlet first. Just go directly there. That's the low-hanging fruit. Then use the device. Also check everything visually, because if it's not transmitting, but you will see the lens. So when you shine that light, you're going to see the lens and go, oh, okay. And we go over this in the course. We show them. I actually plant like 7 devices in the room, and I go device by device and show them how I detected it. So there's that piece. And then you also have, what's the other app? So Fing is a great one. So you can, Fing is good. And then there's a few others for trackers. Now I have not found them to be 100% accurate, but there's, let's see, BLE scanner, which is Bluetooth low emission. BLE scanner is another good one. It'll scan for Bluetooth low emission devices. So that's like your AirTag or your AirPod case, which they're using to track people now, because the criminals got smart and they realized if you have an AirTag near your phone, you're going to get a push notification telling you there's an AirTag near you. So it's gonna kind of give you a heads up, like, oh, something might be tracking me. Well, now they're using AirPod cases because there's no push notification. So they'll just toss an AirPod case. They can track the AirPod case like they're tracking an AirTag. So that's what the criminals are doing. So, but if they use a tracker like this is very accurate. But like I said earlier, they communicate differently. They only shoot out a split second of information every couple minutes. So I'm not inherently lucky. I have never found one of these using any of these devices. I found them using other ones, but those are really expensive. This, you got to find it. That's grunt work. You just go and look for it. But BLE scanner is a good one. And then another one I would recommend, and this was recommended by Joe LaSorsa, very good practitioner of this as well. BT Inspector is another good one. BT Inspector. So those will get you in the ball. Fing and those 2 devices. Fing will detect Wi-Fi devices on a Wi-Fi network that you're on, and those will detect with moderate to high level of accuracy Bluetooth devices or Bluetooth low emission devices.
Now, disabling the cameras, I've had some comments on here about putting duct tape over them, black spray paint. I mean,
Uniform, I
think. I mean, look, it's like this, and this is where this is a boots on the ground decision. It's like, look, do I just want to disable these things? Do I want to turn the picture frame off? Do I want to just unplug this thing and enjoy the rest of my vacation with my family? Right? Do I want to disable
one?
These
there's
things?
More than one.
Right. So if I want to disable these things on my Wi-Fi, or again, do I want to, can you,
the answer, so the short answer to that is, the short answer to that question is, it's a complicated answer, because can you disable all devices on a Wi-Fi network fairly easily? Yes. You can use a Wi-Fi deauthor, which is not illegal. A Wi-Fi deauthor will basically just boot everything off the Wi-Fi network, but that means everything. So
then there's no Netflix, there's
nothing's going to work. It's just going to keep booting things off. But yes, you could do that, but then you're blind. You can't watch Netflix.
Right.
With Bluetooth devices, it's a little more difficult. You got to pretty much find them. And the important thing about Bluetooth devices is, a lot of times, if they're using a Bluetooth device, that means either they're nearby, or it doesn't have a Bluetooth low emission does not have a far range. Wi-Fi does not either, but they use repeaters and boosters and things like that.
Sure. Right.
But my opinion, if you find a device, and I have found devices in places I've stayed without working, I'm just like, oh, damn it, get out of there. Get your money back. Just get out, find a new spot. I know it sucks, but if they're placing devices now, could it be something as simple as they just want to make sure you're not throwing a party? Absolutely. I don't live in a world where I think I go right to there's most likely most dangerous, right? Most likely it's this. Most dangerous is this. Is it somewhere in the middle? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. So, and let's face it, if you're on a vacation with your wife and you're like, hey, I found the camera here, but don't worry, I took it out. She's not going to sleep. And
No.
you're
Oh
certainly
no,
not
it's
doing
it's
it
over.
for years.
Vacation is over.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
whether
It's no
you
longer
stay or
stress-free.
move or everything sucks.
Right.
Everything fucking sucks. Yeah.
Right.
It sucks.
So you're better off find a new place. You know, you make a police report, but even that, the local police, they're just going to report it, and
Right.
you know, it's they have so much more to do, and I really feel for law enforcement today because their jobs are getting harder every single day, and they're just faced with the regular problems that have always been there, and then
Right.
these crazy advanced problems because they'll go
Right.
from a run-of-the-mill drunk and disorderly to a DUI checkpoint, and then to, I don't know, hey, there's somebody scanning my Wi-Fi networks and adding malware. Like, what?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's outside
Right.
my house, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal advice is to lean into it. Get some cosplay going.
Yeah.
You know,
Makes them uncomfortable.
okay, let's go.
You want to go? We'll go, man.
Exactly. You want to get
Shut the
freaky?
laptop. They're like, no.
We're blowing this shit up.
But it's so common, dude. It's so common. It's
I know,
unreal.
it's freaking brutal.
It's scary. It really is.
Yeah. You know, and it's like, unless it's like, yeah, I got guys that got properties. I mean, they've got cameras outside, nothing inside.
Right.
And that's like, I get that, which is fine because you're like, if I can see in the window, it's public domain, right? So,
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. So look, everybody, link to Ryan's course is in the description underneath. So just hit on it, Travel Aware. That'll also bring you over to Dads to Defense. Go check it out. Honestly, it's a few bucks. It's money well worth, well spent, given the hundreds of thousands or millions that was, spent training Ryan to get this information.
Yeah.
And you'll also, you'll be hooked into the Dads for Defense network. I just, as I said, like, coming into this stuff and, it happens, but at least now you've got, some real tools, and anything that Ryan showed today, you can get right in the course.
Yep.
Right off of Amazon. All the shit's linked up. So just, just get into it. Go there. George, as always, your commentary has been riveting.
No, always.
And, Ryan,
What the fuck?
You just do not shut the fuck up again. Ryan, that was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. Again, everybody, thanks for joining us. Again, this will be and if you're watching the recording, again, thank you all, and until next time, train honestly.
All right, guys, be well, be safe. Thanks for having me, guys. I don't know how to get out of this.